when I lost my virginity, and it was a girl. I went to a school called Hampton Elementary School, and um, it was a middle school that was attached to it. So it was Hampton Elementary School, and then it was Hampton Middle School. And there was a girl that was always checking for me and filling up, pulling up, looking to get felt up and stuff like that. And it was a skip day, and so I had some homies that actually live up the street. Actually, it wasn't even a skip day; it was a half a day. And so it was some guys that lived up the street, and I had an auntie that lived a little bit closer to the school because I didn't live as close to the school. But we all went there, and so on that half a day, we wound up going around the block, and then that same girl that was actually older than me. I think she was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years older than me, and it wasn't nothing. Like, I don't remember it meaning anything to me, if that means anything, right? I don't remember that it moved the needle. It wasn't about necessarily getting off. It was more about ego, if that makes any sense. It was about the fact that I knew that I could, and I had finally did the thing that most guys would dream of, but it didn't mean anything to me, right? It didn't move the needle. And I remember, like, after that, me and her was cool, and I'm just gonna call her K, the letter K. And me and her was cool, and we didn't trip about it. It wasn't a big deal. Like, I didn't call her or anything like that. Or it was just like, yo, it happened, and it was cool. And I remember, I think the street was Santa Rosa, because my homie had lived on Santa Rosa, and the street of my aunt lived on was Stobel. And, I went around the block and we was kicking it, and it was kind of like a challenge, like, you know, like kind of on some like, what, you scared or what's up? You know what I'm saying? And obviously, you're not going to back down. And so it was just like, nah, this ain't even no thing to me. And, it just played out the way it played out. And I was just cool. I was chilling. Even to the point to where I never even really considered that as I got older, in a way that I talked about a lot of the different things that I've experienced. I never considered that my first. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like a thing. It just happened. I didn't even consider it losing my virginity. And it's funny because I didn't even really consider myself in a space where I would say that my virginity was lost until very, very shortly after that. And even though she was 2 years older than me, and she was in middle school and I was in the sixth grade, because back then it was up to the sixth grade was elementary school, and then up through the eighth grade was middle school over there. So Hampton Elementary and then Hampton Middle School was up to the sixth grade, and then seventh and eighth grade. I didn't really even mentally consider myself losing my virginity until a girl very shortly after that. Because I think I remember turning 11, and then before I turned 12, I had met another girl, and I'm just gonna call her name Jay, because I'm never gonna give any names or anything like that. But I never told anybody about Kay. I never really mentioned it. I never had a conversation. I remember somebody mentioned that this girl had liked me, or she had liked me, but they didn't even know that I had already bust her down. And I was cool. I was confident. I didn't trip about it. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't tell any of my homies. I didn't tell my brothers about it. I didn't trip. I was just like, I was just normal. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember I met this other girl, and her name was, I'm gonna just say J, right? Her name started with a J. And I met her at skating. And it was over the summer. And we skaters, like, in my family. We lived at Northland Roller Rink up on 8 Mile, and I think it's still open to this day. But we lived there. I remember we would go to the matinee, and then we would stay there for the middle session. And if we was lucky and we can convince our parents to come and pick us up later on that night, we was able to stay all the way through until the late night session, right? So we just lived at the skating rink, and so I can skate, like I can skate in real life, roller skate. And we don't do none of this new skating. We do the skating with the, the wheels that you can slide on. You know what I'm saying? So we lived at Northland Roller Rink, and it was a girl, and she said that she always had, paid attention to me. And you got to remember, again, I looked really mature for my age, and that's going to be the difficult part of this conversation that people really are not taking into consideration, is that I looked older for my age, and it's crazy to think about now as far as me having this conversation with y'all. I looked a lot older. I act a lot older. I operated a lot older. I skate like a grown man at that time. And I was confident, you know what I'm saying? So it was a girl, and she had came a few times. And I knew she was in high school. And her name, again, I'm going to just call her Jay. And we was cool, you know what I'm saying? We was just skating, having a good time. And the thing about, I don't know how it is today, but skating back then, it's the same thing as everything. Like you build a community, you start to hang around different people, and people get clicked up, and the same people show up all the time, and some people new, and some people, has been there for a while. And so you start to connect with people. And I remember she was like, even though she was in high school, we called the girls out there in Southfield and Southfield Lathrop. We said that they had money. You know what I'm saying? Because the Southfield girls were supposed to be like a little bit more, paid in our mind than the little girls that was in Detroit. But again, she was in high school, and so I would skate with her, and we would just kick it, and we would talk on the bench and stuff like that. And we exchanged phone numbers, like we exchanged information. And then when we exchanged information back then, we didn't have cell phones. So you got to remember the times that we having these conversations in, right? So this is the 90s. And so when we exchanged information, we had house phones. And in our house in particular, we had two phones. So we had a business phone, and then we had the regular phone line. And I still even remember the phone numbers from my house. And so late at night, and I would always tell her, hey, don't call me, it's late, I don't want you waking my mom up and stuff like that. And she had her own line, she had her own truck, she had bought her own Jeep, she had a pager, she was out here balling out in these streets, she had her own job, she was working after school, and she was getting ready to go to college and all of that other type of stuff. Really cute girl and all of that, right? And so again, it wasn't nothing for me, because we were used to talking to girls and walking up to them and having a confidence, which is so wild to think about it, considering the ways that people operate today and how young we were able to gain that level of confidence that carried us throughout the rest of our life.